Hi everyone. It looks like I am live. I'm coming here today because I did a live video yesterday in our private Facebook group about coronavirus, and we're not able to share from that group, of course, because it's a private group. So I thought I'd put something that was more available, something you could share. Just to kind of review, there's a lot of scare and a lot of debate happening about coronavirus, and so I want to be able to address that. I want people to be able to feel safe and kind of decide what measures and steps they take, and I want to be able to do it with clarity. And of course, because health is such a huge connection to what we do in the Inspired Evolution Project, I thought this would be a good time to address it and a good time to note what's going on. So the first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about this debate between the data pack versus Flatten the Curve. People are falling on one side or the other, and I think that that's a bit of the mistake. So what I want to do first of all is I want to talk about Flatten the Curve and what Flatten the Curve is for those people who don't know. Flatten the Curve basically says taking preventative measures in the case of outbreaks. And I think, of course, this is very important, that when an outbreak first happens, there's a lot of contagion because people don't know there's been an outbreak. And so taking precautionary measures against outbreaks is very important. This is obvious. This is a pretty obvious need that we have. So if you have a communicable disease, any communicable disease, this isn't just coronavirus, be responsible when it comes to not taking the risk of sharing that with other people. Now with coronavirus, of course, we know, stay home if you're sick. If you have any of the symptoms, just stay away from other people. Wash your hands a lot and don't touch your face. This is just really common knowledge. We've all talked about it, and it is important. Flattening the curve is very important. And even understanding that taking these precautionary measures and which precautionary measures to take is important. And I am going to be talking about that. The other thing I want to talk about today is the other thing that's out there, which is this coronavirus data pack. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because this is just as important as making sure we are aware about flattening the curve, that we're taking the right approaches to the virus itself, but also being informed. So this comes from Information is Beautiful, because we want to be informed about what the coronavirus really is. So when we look at this data pack, the first thing we are going to be looking at is the fact that knowing the numbers is really important. We need to know the truth about how severe it really is. So as we look at it, we can see that the majority of people that are getting this virus, like the flu, don't end up in the hospital. They don't end up in severe conditions. The majority, and we're going to talk about why and how we can be in that 80.9% group, that if we do contract the virus. Now, this isn't 80% of all people. This is 80% of people who contract the virus don't get really serious symptoms. And this is important to know, because being in a state of fear is dangerous. Being in a state of fear also puts us at risk. So, because we're going to talk about that more in a second, what it does in the system. But it's really important to understand what's happening with this virus so that we're not getting widespread panic. The other thing to know is that the majority of people do recover. Now, on this report, they even went with the high number of fatalities. They're not even sure. They're saying the fatalities are somewhere between 1% and 4%, because the majority of people that get it don't even go to the doctor. So that would reduce the percentage. The numbers of people who have died is important to recognize, but it's also important to recognize these percentages are based off people that have actually gone to the hospital, reported signs of illness. And so as we're moving forward, the CDC's number right now, just so that you know, that is 2.4% was the last report I read from the CDC. And that most people barely know they're sick. So they say it's likely a lower number. The other thing we know from this slide is that age is a factor. And I think this is a good place to talk about what can we do. So my parents live in a senior apartment complex. So they live in an apartment complex that the majority of people are over 80. And this is the highest risk, as you can see from this particular slide, that the highest risk out there right now is people above 80, and that it decreases from there. So that by the time you're under 60, you really are, they haven't had any real significant issues in lower age groups. So it's really important to be aware of that and to be connected to that knowledge. Now, like in my parents' facility, they just have it on lockdown. No one is allowed to come and visit without pre-authorization. And this is smart because then we don't have a person, say like I have contracted the virus. I could have it and not know, because when I contract viruses, I don't get sick because of the practices I do. But I could be a carrier. And if I'm a carrier and I go to see my mom in that facility, I put the whole community there at risk because they're all in that higher percentile. So it is smart and flatten the curve for us to be able to be aware of where we're going and why we're going there, and to approach all of our decisions with clarity. Think about it. Think, is it a place I should be? What if I'm a carrier and I don't know it? What if these mild symptoms I sometimes have are connected? Then it's good to not be in large groups of people, right? Because we do want some contagious. We do want to be aware of if we're contagious. So the other thing is that I really want to talk about today is this conversation about compromised immune system. The majority of people that are becoming extremely ill or that have fatalities are people with an already compromised immune system, people with cancer or chronic respiratory diseases, diabetes, conditions like this. So again, you want to be aware. If you're suffering any of these conditions, you're more vulnerable. Take precautions. Make sure you wash your hands and don't touch your face. If you have people in your life with these conditions, make sure they're educated. But the thing we really need to know has to do with the fact that we need to not panic, because that in and of itself compromises our immune system. So I'm just going to go through the rest of these slides really quick. Again, the severity of infection is age-based. There's a lot of how contagious is it, and there's a rating here. If you want to see this full slide presentation larger where you can take time to look at it, you can get that at Information is Beautiful. I reposted it on Instagram and Facebook, so there are links there as well. They're talking about fatalities per country and disease deaths worldwide. Now, this is the biggest one here that I want to use to go into what I'm going to talk about. And that is the fact that we are treating this like the kind of epidemic that is spreading fear. And fear is a dangerous thing for us to have. When we are in fear, we make bad decisions. And when we are in fear, we compromise our immune system even further. So there is a lot of fear. You look at something like SARS, which has a much higher risk of contagion if you look at the previous chart. And yet we are all panicking about coronavirus. Now, it is something to be aware of. It is something to be conscious about. But right now we're in such panic states that we're actually putting ourselves at risk. And so what I want to talk about today is what helps. So instead of being in a panic state, or instead of thinking, oh, they're not realizing this argument between the concept of having this statistical information versus flattening the curve, it's not a competition. They're not either one wrong. Both are important because, first of all, we do need to flatten the curve. We do need to be more aware and conscious in our decisions, but we also need to not panic, because that compromises the immune system more, which puts us all at bigger risk. So what I want to do today, and the reason why I'm doing this video, why I went live, decided to go live yesterday, is I'm getting contact from a lot of people who are scared, and I'm seeing a lot of panic. And what I know about panic is that it is an effect of being triggered. And so I want to talk about what it is to be triggered, what it does in the body, and how to eliminate those triggers so that we're not putting ourselves in at risk, especially at undue risk. So for those of you that haven't taken the free course I have on brain chemistry, there is a free course on my website, inspiredevolutionproject.com. Just go to that URL, select from our homepage. You can select education, courses, and then the very top one is free introduction to brain chemistry. This course gives you all the information on what the brain's doing when we trigger. But in a nutshell, what happens is we feel threat. Right now, coronavirus is that threat. Or the body is threatened because we've actually contracted coronavirus, right? If the body feels threatened, what it does is it triggers this fight or flight mechanism. Now, when the fight or flight mechanism is triggered, the adrenal system is turned on. So we are putting out this tremendous amount of energy. So our heart is pumping harder, our lungs are tightening up, our blood vessels are dilating. All this stuff is happening in the body that is about heightening energy levels, so that the brain basically thinks we're being chased by a tiger, so it wants to be able to fight harder, run faster, right? That's what fight or flight is. It's also making us more alert and awake. So all of these functions of the brain triggering us these reactions that consume high energy. So they're consuming high amounts of the energy our bodies produce. So our bodies are always producing energy, right? This is why we're approximately 98 degrees all the time, because of all the energy our body's pushing, right? And it increases energetic use, like creating a fever or something when we become sick, because it's trying to fight it off. So again, we have the energy. It's our body that produces that energy. But what happens is that when our body is in such high energy production, there is only so much energy the body can produce. It's limited in the amount of energy it has available. So what it does is the brain triggers histamines to start turning off systems it doesn't consider vital in the moment. And the immune system is one of these systems. When we're being chased by a tiger, we don't need our immune system. So the brain is saying, okay, I'm going to shut off that system. It also shuts off the digestive system. It either heightens or shuts off the allergic response system and the central nervous system. But I want to talk about the immune system here, because this directly correlates to viruses of any kind. So if we're in a stress state, if we have anxiety, if we're worrying, if we're fearful, our immune system is being shut down to conserve the energy that's consumed by our worry. This is why stress makes us sick. So the two things I want to talk about today is, first of all, I want to talk about the fact of not stressing, because it will reduce your risk. I'm not going to tell you don't stress, because it doesn't work that way. That stress is stimulated in the subconscious mind. Information helps, which is why I included the information that's out there right now. The second thing I want to do is talk about how do we prevent it? How do we strengthen? How do we actually strengthen the immune system? Because we can take all the vitamins, and we can take tons of vitamin C, and we can take all these immune boosters, but they are not going to boost our immune system if it's turned off. If it's turned off by the brain, boosting it won't help. So what we want to do is we want to turn it back on. So we want to shut down the amygdala. The amygdala is the system that activates during fight or flight. And this is the system telling our brain, shut off these systems. I need energy because this person is going to die, right? So the brain thinks that. So in order to do this, we want to make sure when we're doing practices, of course, that's the whole reason why we do the Inspired Evolution Project, is to go through these phases and improve brain function, and especially to extend our life, to give us better health and well-being. So we want to make sure we're doing at least a phase 2 practice. Now, if you don't know what our practices are, don't worry. I'm going to explain what those are in just a moment. I do want to say to the people that are involved in our program, phase 1 won't work. It's not enough. You need to make sure you're doing phase 2. If you need a list of phase 2 practices, they are available on the website. So again, you go to inspiredevolutionproject.com, go to the store, and there are 3 different exercise packs. One is phase 2 practices, one is phase 1, and one's phase 3. So you want to do at least phase 2. You can also do phase 3 if you're in a space where you can do that. These will actually help to shut off the amygdala and begin to shrink it if you do them enough. So it's really vital, especially in times like these with viruses like this. This is when we need to wake up and not make excuses to not do our practices, when we need to connect again with what's most valuable to you. How valuable is your health and well-being? How important is it to you to be healthy? Because 20 minutes a day is all it takes. Now, if we're in a heightened state of emergency with a rather strong virus, to do the practices 2 or 3 times a day is a great idea. The important thing is you need to make sure it's at least phase 2, which means it's forcing you to concentrate. So I'm going to give you a quick list of phase 2 practices that you can do through this that will actually strengthen your immune system, make your body stronger, make you less likely to contract the virus, and increase your ability to recover from it quickly if you do contract it. So these phase 2 practices are this. The first one I'm going to mention is learn something new, but it needs to be something that's really difficult to do. It needs to be something that requires your full concentration. So learn how to juggle, or play hacky sack, or learn a new language, or a new writing technique or something. Learn something that you've never learned. There are so many things available on YouTube and in the library that you could go and get that teach you how to do something new. And again, you want it to be something you're not good at. If you're good at it, it goes in phase 1. You want it to be something that really requires your full concentration. You only need to practice for 20 minutes at a time. I do recommend during these times, 3 times a day, I recommend right before bed is the most important time to do your practice. If you want to know more about that, there is a brain hack on the website under articles and videos under the video tab. I think it's Brain Hack 10. Talks about it's also available on YouTube, but it talks about sleep, why doing a practice right before bed is important. You get more benefit, but you can do it first thing in the morning, midday, whatever. Sleep's going to yield the fastest results for you. So you want to do something where you're learning something that's truly difficult to do. One of the things you're going to see on that list, if you download the list, is go somewhere new. During something like a viral outbreak, and looking at that flattening the curve concept, it might be a good idea to not have this be, not going out as much, kind of being aware when you're going places, what you're doing, the kind of proximity you're keeping to with people, that maybe you're not doing as much close contact. So the second thing I recommend is trying the non-dominant hand work. This is a really good one. Now, if you're ambidextrous, it may not be as easy, but try to find things. It could be locking and unlocking doors, brushing your teeth. It could be, I talk about the coloring books all the time. You could do coloring books, or learn the alphabet with your non-dominant hand. So go back and get those ruler pages you had as a child and learn how to use your non-dominant hand well enough that it looks as good as your dominant hand. This forces that concentration state that we need to be shrinking that amygdala. One of the other things I recommend is reading complicated books. These, again, can be educational books, or they can be philosophical. They can be, one of the styles of books I recommend is going back to books like written in the 1800s or even prior to that, because trying to read a book that's using your language, but in a different way, using your language in a way that is requires your concentration and focus to be able to read it, to be able to comprehend it. Books like that are good for increasing concentration. One of the other things I recommend is if you choose something like a self-help book or an education book or a philosophical book, that while you're reading, if you get inspired by any thought, like, oh, that could mean this, or, oh, I could do this, stop reading and start writing. Sitting in contemplative thought is actually a phase 3 practice, so it's an up level from phase 2. So if you take those books you like to read that spark new ideas, sit and write about the new idea for 20 minutes. That is really, really powerful for the brain. The other one I'm going to mention is mindful meditation. Now, if you don't already know how to do mindful meditation the proper way, just look at it this way. Mindfulness just basically means in a state of observation. So you could be observing something you see, it could be a sound that if you pause and listen to ambient sounds that you may not have noticed. Body scans are really good for this. So you can think of your toes, think of each toe individually, think of each toenail. Think about the bottom of your feet, about the arch and the heel, the top. Think about the bones in your feet and all the muscles. Move your toes and think about all the muscles that are working. So you go through your whole body. This is a very good centering practice. This is a great one. Before going to sleep, you can do it right while you're in bed. But this paying attention, the second thing that helps this is if we articulate. So if I'm observing something, articulating what I'm observing, speaking it out loud or writing it down. And the harder the thing is to describe, the better it is for the brain. So if you do this and you do it accurately, at least if you choose to do it 3 times a day, especially one of those times being right before bed, your immune system will be stronger. With the same kind of predictability that if you go to the gym and lift weights that are heavy, that your muscles will get stronger. It is an inevitability because that's exactly what you're doing when you're doing these practices. You're working a muscle in the brain. So if you do the practices accurately, which means you're really concentrating for 3 times a day, you will be stronger. And unless you already have a compromised immune system, you shouldn't contract the virus, or if you do, your body will easily fight it off. This is why viruses come and go. This is why we see outbreaks and then they fade, because the body finds a way. This is how vaccines work. So a vaccine is they put a small amount of virus in your body. Your body builds up antibodies. It learns how to fight off the illness. So then when you're exposed to the virus, the body already knows how to fight it off. Well, every one of us right now, the people who have coronavirus, those of us that are in the world right now, our bodies are finding ways, building antibodies to fight it off. But that's only happening if the immune system's on. So it's really important that we're turning our immune systems on. And that's why our practices are more important than ever. It's really important for us to be healthy right now. Let it motivate you so you can help others. There are others who have compromised immune systems. We can't take care of them unless we're healthy ourselves. So be there for the people in your life that might become sick. It's really important for the health of everyone that we make wise decisions at this time. And the best decision we can make is to make our immune system stronger and stronger and stronger. So the worse viruses get, the less likely we are to be affected by them. So I think that's everything for today. If you want to know more, you can post questions and comments. I'm happy to answer those. I'm happy to connect and give you any information you might need on how to do the practices, how to improve the brain function. If you're not seeing the benefits you expect to see, I'm happy to give you clarifications. Again, check out the website. There is a free course called Introduction to Brain Chemistry that includes all the practices and explains to you what causes illness in the first place. Because doing these practices won't just help you with coronavirus. This improves health overall with cancer, autoimmune disease, autism, mood disorders, mental health disorders, weight, any digestive disorders. All these sicknesses that we have are the result of us being too stressed too much, and our systems being turned off. So if you want to know more about that, you can watch the videos on YouTube, or you can go to our website. The course is free, not asking for your email address or anything. I just want to get the information out there so we can all live the healthiest, happiest lives possible. If you want more information about the brain and how it affects us, I am live for brain hacks. So anyway, however you decide to move forward, I do wish you tremendous success on your journey.